we're actually using blockchain, which is what I think the future of blockchain will be. And I'm going to stay away from the crypto space. I'm going to focus on the technology itself as an agent for transformation. And I'm going to kind of intermingle what I'm talking about with something that we've already built. So the way that we look at blockchain in the Department of Health and Human Services is it is an enabler for modernization. It gives us the ability to separate data from process, to separate attestation from identity itself, to keep transactional information and attestation on the blockchain, and to separate out identity, using the hashing and the encryption so that it's very hard to tell what identity belongs to what transactional information. And we've started in the lowest risk space that you can actually start in. So I used to work at the Department of Treasury when I became passionate about blockchain, and when it really hit me, the impact that it could have, I was walking through a city in Latin America, and we were walking out of a movie theater, and there was this underprivileged kid, and he started screaming, and he was crying because someone had taken his dinner. He's like 6 years old. And I said to him in Spanish, like, "Where's your mom?" And my wife's from La Paz, Bolivia, and she kind of elbowed me, and she was like, "He doesn't have a mom. He's 6 years old and he's homeless. He doesn't have identity. There's no record of his vaccinations. He'll have a tough time actually opening a bank account because he doesn't have an identity, and he probably doesn't even really know who his parents are or what his name is." But when I was at the Treasury, I realized that starting with blockchain as it relates to identity is really, really difficult, right? And it's going to take a long time to actually change policies and to get organizations comfortable with that change. So what I did is I went into the procurement space, and I said, here's a space where you can drive a return on investment. There's a really good McKinsey article out there talking about there's no return on investment in any blockchain projects around the world. I'm going to talk about our 896% ROI right here in a second, where I can drive a return on investment, and I can use that return on investment to extend into mission space. So when I went to Health and Human Services, we spend about $24.2 billion a year. And we said, let's look at data, and let's look at data as it relates to how we spend our money, as it relates to terms and conditions in our contracts, as something that's very important and powerful to us. And let's focus on creating an immutable record of that data versus an identity itself, right? And so we spend $24.2 billion a year in 5 different contract writing systems. And the problem when you do business in government is it takes you 6 months to get an understanding on your total expenditure on gloves or software licenses, because you can't readily extract and analyze that information because it's in all these siloed systems, right? So what we did is we said, why don't we take the blockchain itself, why don't we extract the data from the 5 contract writing systems using machine learning, why don't we put attestation on the blockchain, why don't we put the identity of the data off-chain in an off-chain database, separate the two, and why don't we use a microservices architecture off of that encryption layer to actually execute business process and actually rebuild our business process. So I have 5 contract writing systems that are actually delivering mission. I'm not disrupting the way people are doing their work, but at the same time I'm creating a single immutable record of all the data in the department, 100,000 contracts, $24.2 billion in spend, contracts with about 20,000 companies, and let me rebuild business process, leveraging the blockchain as a encrypted layer to access the data that I need, and I can modernize one business process at a time. And that's what we've done. So we started this project in April, I think we started at April 17th of 2018, started doing development work around the summer, and I'm going to kind of tell you where we are and then where we're going. So we kind of wrote the business case, did the proofs of concepts, kind of coordinated the linear process with all of our stakeholders all at the same time. So I go to the CIO and say, look, we're not building anything, but we're thinking about building something, and here's the business case, and we might invest in a little bit of a proof, but we're not building anything, so I don't want you to get worried about it. And then I would come back to him like 2 weeks later, it's like, well, we built a little proof, do you want to take a look at it? We did update the business plan, but we're not asking for approval to build a whole new system, right? So we kind of used that process, that's how we were able to drive it so quickly. So when you look at HHS, right, we said we have to micromanage where we spend money and where we generate return on investment. So we're focused on 3 areas. Number one, we started with products. We spend about $9–10 billion a year in products, and we had built an algorithm that identified a possibility for $2 billion in savings. But again, when I go to buy something in the federal government, it takes me about 6 months to figure out my total expenditure on gloves and to actually figure out what terms and conditions I want to go and buy, and then go to the market to actually buy that. So we said we want to create the ability that you have when you go to Target. When I go to Target, I took my phones out of my pocket, but when I go to Target with my wife and we go to buy something, she looks up the price on Amazon, and if it's cheaper than the Target price, they immediately give you a discount. So we wanted to create that capability. So we spent $9 billion on products. So we built microservices that extracted product expenditure and terms and conditions from the 5 contract writing systems. We cleansed that data on the way in, because bad data in is bad data out, so we cleansed it, VER, v.6, v version, all mean version. We put it in a structured data set, indexed on the blockchain, used a reference architecture to identify where it was in an off-chain database, right? And we use natural language processing to do what? To auto-read the terms and conditions and prices paid. Now, if you're a contracting professional on the floor, going to negotiate a deal, we can give you the lowest price, highest price, medium price, the price as it relates to your terms and conditions. Every single contract in the Department of Health and Human Services, we can pull it up through the reference architecture, we can display it to you, and we can show you in real time, within 1 second, that it costs 49 cents for nitrile gloves, and not $1, and here are the 7 contracts you can purchase off of, and if you buy it in a different region, the price is different because of the distribution cost. We identified $2 billion in savings. We said, we're probably not going to capture $2 billion in savings. Let's risk adjust that to $720 million. And then we said, let's risk adjust that further so our business case makes sense. We're going to take 40% of the $720 million. We'll say we'll capture 5% the first year, 25% the second year, 50% the third, 75% the fourth. So that's one level of investment and one measure of return. Second area is process improvement. We have some of our business processes take 110, 120 days to be awarded a contract to do a modification. We measured every dollar that we put into process improvement. Because we have the information on the blockchain, because we're recording behavioral information as to where people are actually going, we can automate business process, we can push information to the contracting professional in real time on the basis of what they're doing to make the process go faster. So in one example, just modifying a contract, we can analyze 30,000 light items from a cloud service provider in real time. We can flag the pricing that's higher than existing rates in our existing contracts. So the contracting professional can actually go in and negotiate those rates. We can do that in a second. Normally it takes 2 years on a 30,000 line item catalog of business, and you never actually look at every price. So that's the other area of improvement, process improvement. So how many dollars go into automating process, and what's the return on that? We didn't measure a return on investment there, because measuring a return on investment there actually points to the fact that you're going to remove staff. And we feel that we're not going to remove staff because we're going to create more time for critical thinking in the areas we need, and we already think we're understaffed. So we measured no ROI there, okay? The third area is just moving from an on-prem data center to a commercial cloud environment, and the savings associated with fully moving into a cloud environment. So in total, we had an investment that we planned over 5 years of $34.7 million. And on the basis of those 3 fundamentals in our business plan, we expected to generate an 896% return on investment with a $256 million net present value. And we felt we would be able to do that over a 5-year period. Well, just to give you an update, at this moment in time, we've spent $2.85 million, and we've achieved every single objective that I've just laid out for you. Now, of course, there's some change management to go along with that, and we're going to spend more money, so the number isn't going to be $2.85 million. But the point is that the return on investment and the net present value numbers are much more impressive when you think about the fact that we've achieved all those objectives for $2.85 million versus $34.7 million, knowing that we're going to have to spend some more capital. So we had we just got the first authority to operate in the history of the federal government for a blockchain technology. We're pretty excited about that. We got it on December 13th. So our capability has a security authority to operate. We think it's scalable. I'm going to talk about how we think it's scalable. And we're told that it's the first authority to operate for public procurement in the world, leveraging blockchain technology. We think that this model of doing business is actually inverting our business model. It costs a lot of money for a company to actually standardize a business process, a lot of money. We're not standard, because it's like everybody in this room, you're going to do business this way. This is the one pipe that all the information is going to go through. It costs a lot of money to change and train behavior to do business that way. What we're doing is we're saying, look, go ahead and do business any way you want. We're going to give you the creative and professional freedom to do business any way you want. You're going to do business on our business network. We're going to record all your behaviors because I am the employer. You are not an individual. I am the employer. I want to understand what you're doing. But I'm going to give you I'm going to allow you the professional creativity to execute in the way you want, and I'm going to use the business network as a governance mechanism. I'm going to use the recording of behavior that actually occurs on the business network as my mechanism for governance. I'm going to empower you with the information that you need at the point of purchase. So we focused on 3 persona areas. I talked about one because it's the one that drives our biggest savings, but it's savings at the point of purchase, our target example. We focused on improving business process. I always give a cancer researcher example. If you're a cancer researcher and you come into Health and Human Services and you're the top cancer researcher in the world, having you sit down and actually learn the federal acquisition regulation, which is this thick, is really a waste of your time, right? Opportunity cost. You're the best cancer researcher in the world, and I'm making you go and learn something that you don't care about. Whenever a cancer researcher spends money, they have to put together an acquisition plan, a business plan. We're automating the pre-population of that business plan. Why? So as a cancer researcher, you can read the information that exists and said, this is what research has been done before me, and this is how they awarded their contracts, and this is where they spent their money. And you can say, I don't need pipettes, I don't need nitrile gloves, I just need research support. You can focus on what? Your goals, your objectives, your stakeholder engagement strategy, and the risks associated with what you're doing. You can focus on the creative things that you want to do to actually achieve your objectives. We're enabling the cancer researcher. The other persona that we're targeting is the industry base. If we have anybody from industry here, it's pretty expensive to do business with the federal government. You resubmit the same information over and over again. The administrative costs are very high. We've automated a lot of those functions. We're directly pulling your information from sam.gov. We're auto-validating and verify that you should and can and are able to do business with the US federal government through a direct API feed with the IRS. We're creating an immutable record of what? Your identity off the chain with attestation on the chain, so that that information is readily available to us as it relates to your capabilities, readily available to us as it relates to the fact that you're a valid and able firm that can do business with the US federal government, so you don't have to resubmit that information over and over again. If you're a large company and you do business with, you submit a response to HHS and maybe you bid on 1,000 opportunities or you respond to 1,000 opportunities at HHS, that's a significant cost. Now I want you to think about this. Now I can actually digest a catalog from an industry partner in real time, a readily updatable catalog, imagine that. And I can analyze your prices paid or the prices you're offering based on my prices paid, and I can provide that information from a market research perspective to anybody that's going to spend money in the federal government so that they can plan how they're going to spend that money. Makes it easier for you, makes it easier for us. So we believe that this is a down payment on how to modernize government. We believe that this infrastructure is the way that government will modernize all of its administrative functions and then extend itself with those savings into the mission space. Right? This is very similar to when I learned to ride a bike, I use training wheels. I have 2 kids, and they use a balance bike. There's no training wheels. When we first bought it, I was like, what are they going to do with this? It's like, he's going to fall over, but his feet can my kid's feet can touch the ground. His brain can actually learn to balance quicker. He learned to ride a bike much quicker than he would have with training wheels. We're changing the infrastructure as to how we do business. So we think we can extend this to other places like human resources, like budgeting information. And what can we do now? Like maybe outcomes in contracts as it relates to what we were paying for and what we were trying to achieve. Why? Because now I have push button, and we're working on this, right? So this is where we're going. So now I have push button scalable infrastructure. It's really not pushing a button, we all know that, but it sounds good. Makes it real, makes it something you can understand, right? So now I have what? I have push button scalable infrastructure. So I can go to the VA and I can say, hey guys, do you want an infrastructure where you can ingest structured and unstructured data, leveraging machine learning algorithms, that's in a secure compartmentalized cloud environment, but we're going to store information that way, and you can have access to all of our expenditures from an acquisition perspective. So if you're at VA, wouldn't you like to have real-time insight on terms and conditions and prices paid on HHS software licenses, so when you go and do your software license purchases, you have the benefit of that? Well, VA, wouldn't you like us to analyze your prices paid in terms and conditions in the same way? Wouldn't that benefit you? Push button scalable infrastructure. And then I can go to VA and I can say, hey, Veterans Affairs, do you want to use the microservices that I built to facilitate your acquisition process? And they say, oh, no, we're different. We do business completely differently than you. Yep. Okay, well, you can customize and build your own microservice off the infrastructure, data, and information that I have, if you'd like, and you get the benefit of the $24.2 billion in spend that I'm spending money on, or I could just give you the code as it relates to the microservices we've built, and you could customize them and carry the O&M costs for customization as it relates to delivering your mission. Now, no longer am I customizing for you, no longer am I the shared service provider. We're sharing infrastructure, we're sharing data, we're sharing information and insight across both portfolios, but you are in control of how you customize and how you execute at the functional level. And that's very scalable. And I can add value for you. You're adding value for me, because the second I'm analyzing your data, it becomes more powerful for me. So that's where we're going. So we started this project April 17th of 2018. I fully expect by March that the microservices for the industry base, the cancer researcher, and the contracting professional will be fully built and tested. I fully expect that by October, we'll have built out the entire acquisition lifecycle, all of the microservices associated with it, and we'll have a scalable infrastructure layer that we can actually go and start to spin up for other agencies. And I also can tell you that we will be doing this as it relates to other mission spaces. And they're not sexy. I would so rather help this poor kid that I met outside the theater in La Paz, Bolivia. But the down payment on being able to help them is getting out of this O&M death cycle where 80% of your total expenditures go to operations and maintenance, and actually modernizing that infrastructure layer so that you have the ability to scale into mission spaces and actually deliver outcomes that save you money so that you can focus in on your mission space. That's the way that I look at it. I didn't bring up crypto once, sorry if you guys thought that. I'm not against crypto. If anyone wants to give me Bitcoin, I'm happy to take it. If it's legal, Comey's will tell me that, he's the lawyer. I'm happy to take it. But this is what I believe is the way that blockchain technology can be used to modernize the way that you do business and create a function that is a down payment, and how you can modernize the way you drive profits. I think I went over. Or generate revenue. So thank you very much.